So recently I've been watching some videos about life in Sweden, and today I'm going to be watching another one. This is called What Not to Do in Sweden. Avoid these 10 mistakes. So yeah, I think that's obviously a good guide for people going to Sweden, what things they should not do. If you're from Sweden, tell me if you agree with all of these. Tell me what you think about them. And yeah, if there's anything else you think people shouldn't do if they go to Sweden, tell me in the comments as well. But let's watch.
Swedish people are polite and friendly.
Yeah, and I watched one of this guy's videos before. It was very good. I like his personality. So I'll leave a link to this video in the description. Go subscribe to his channel. Very interesting guy.
And they don't like to make a big fuss. They often smile, but they might still be furious on the inside. This is a list of 10 things that you shouldn't do in Sweden. So you want to visit the cold north and explore the lovely country of Sweden, but you don't want to make a fool of yourself. I'm here to help you with that. With this simple guide, you can avoid the worst pitfalls when you travel to Sweden. Let's kick things off with buying a round of drinks. So you're at a bar with some random Swedish people you've met, and you notice that your glass is empty. You want to be a good chap, so you surprise your new friends by bringing back a pint of beer for everyone at the table. Imagine your surprise when you're not met with cheers and thanks. Instead, you're met with suspicious looks. Buying rounds isn't all that common in Sweden. Everyone typically buys their own drinks. If you buy a round, every Swede starts to do a mental calculation. We're 5 people at the table. That means I'm gonna have to drink 5 more drinks, and I was planning on going home soon. A Swede will feel obligated to pay you back for the drink you bought him. You just wanted to be nice, but instead you accidentally caused him anxiety.
I guess that kind of makes sense. I'm from the UK, so of course buying rounds is just the normal thing. Like everybody will just buy one for everybody. I don't think people think too much about getting another one back or anything like that. Of course, it's nice to do that. But I actually kind of like the Swedish way. It's all about the individual. Just buy what you need. You don't feel obligated to drink a lot and get drunk, which a lot of British people do. And you can just kind of budget for what you want to spend, what you want to drink. Kind of makes sense, actually. Tell me, do you buy rounds in Sweden yourself? Do you ever do it? Or do you ever just always just buy for yourself?
Imagine that you're starting a new job at a Swedish company. At the fika break, you start asking people how much money they make. Everyone suddenly looks away and mutters something about a meeting they forgot. You just made a big mistake. Asking people about their salary is considered a big faux pas in Sweden. Swedish society is rooted in socialism and equality. Things are changing these days, but it's still considered rude to ask people about their salaries. A Swede will happily tell you about their divorce or their mental illnesses, but how much they make, that's a secret they'll take to the grave. But what if you start by first telling everyone how much you make? Well, that leads to the next taboo topic.
Yeah, I think actually that's very normal. I've lived in quite a few different countries in Asia. I've lived in the UK, of course. And every country I've been, like, people just don't really want to discuss salary. I've never wanted to discuss it, but it seems like it's also a very taboo subject. I guess, I don't know if that's a good thing or not, because it gives corporations a bit more power to pay people differently and maybe not pay people as much as they should or could. Sweden has a bit more equality where that might not be such an issue. And I guess in Sweden you have that sort of database thing where you can check, I think, how much people get paid or how much tax they pay, so you could maybe work it out if you're really desperate to know. But for me, I've never really wanted to know what someone earns. I don't really care. If I'm happy to take a job on a salary, then I just get by with that. But what do you feel about that? Do you feel like it is important to have that privacy when it comes to your salary? Do you ever discuss it with anybody?
Boasting is very rude in Sweden. You might be good at something or make a lot of money, but you don't talk about it. Jantelagen, the law of Jante, is a Swedish term for not believing that you're better than anyone else. The closest English term is the tall poppy syndrome, about cutting the head off any poppy that grows taller than the others. People might smile and appear impressed if you boast about something, but don't be surprised if you're never invited back again to a party with that crowd. They won't tell it to your face, but you've just become a boasting pariah that people want to avoid.
I completely agree with that. I feel like there's not much things that are worse personality-wise than someone who boasts about things they've got, the things they do. I think if someone has like a great achievement, like I feel like that's okay. Like if it's something they've worked hard to try and do, it's nice to share that. But things like how much you earn, things you buy, all that sort of thing, I don't really like it. And I like that Swedish people have that similar mentality. So, but do you know any Swedish people who are like that, who do boast, and how would you deal with that?
The next thing not to do is pretty simple. Don't assume that all of Scandinavia is the same. Norwegians and Swedes are different. Danes and Swedes are different. And Finnish people aren't even Scandinavian. They're part of the Nordics. Each country has their own customs, their own language, and their own set of values. Danish people are all drunk and lazy, for example, and Finnish people are depressed and speak monosyllabically. And Norwegians just live off their oil money and wander around in the mountains. They don't do anything useful. So the next time you're thinking of saying that Sweden is similar to Denmark, then you're implying that we are drunk and lazy as well. No, but seriously, we see the differences in our cultures very, very clearly, even if you might not.
Yeah, that one as well. I learned a lot about Northern European countries. I know there's a lot of strong differences. As a Swedish person, which country in Northern Europe do you feel is most similar to Sweden, if any?
Have you ever been on an escalator in Sweden and noticed that you have a line of people behind you, sighing in frustration and looking annoyed? Chances are you've been standing on the left side of the escalator. Never stand on the left side. The left side is for walking and the right side is for standing still. This is mostly a problem in bigger cities like Stockholm. I don't even know if they have escalators in smaller towns. If you stand on the left side, no one will shout at you, because Swedes dislike confrontation. But if looks could kill, you'd be stabbed more times than Julius Caesar. Here's a simple little rhyme to help you remember where to stand. Stand on the right, now that's all right. Stand on the left, and you're a stupid bastard.
That was so unexpected, man. Great. Love this channel. Go
in the
subscribe to
US,
it.
it's common to call politicians religious and God-worshipping and God-fearing, and that's intended to be a good thing. If a politician in Sweden were to call themselves God-fearing, there would be quite a few raised eyebrows. Religion isn't very big in Sweden. Many people have some sort of faith though, and we do like churches. They're big and cool and they look absolutely awesome, but you don't really go there to worship God. That's where you listen to choirs and concerts instead. Most people in Sweden are atheist or at least agnostic, and it's seen as a bit of an odd thing to start to talk about your faith. The best way to ensure that you're never invited to any of the cool midsummer parties is to say that you're deeply religious. If you have to say anything, just say that you're spiritual. That's much more accepted. Do you speak like this most of the time? Then you're not really gonna fit in Sweden. Swedish people are pretty quiet, and we appreciate people speaking softly if they have to speak at all. Also, having your phone on speaker mode is just completely unacceptable anywhere. Just forget about that feature completely when you go to Sweden. Use your headphones like everyone else. However, Swedish people aren't always quiet. When a Swede is drunk, they will be as loud and obnoxious as humanly possible. I'm not saying that we Swedes are like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, but I'm not saying that we aren't. you enjoy a bit of personal space, maybe a couple of decimeters or so? Well, Swedish people need at least a couple of meters at all times. During COVID, everyone had to stand 2 meters apart, but no one really noticed the difference in Sweden. Don't sit next to someone on the subway if there's an empty seat anywhere else in the car, and don't stand too close when standing in line. Otherwise, you'll make us poor Swedes extremely uncomfortable, and you'll come off as some sort of sociopath, or possibly American. And whatever you do, don't start talking to people when standing that close. That's just plain weird.
With regards to that one, because I like my own personal space as well. I've lived in Asia for a long time where that's not such a consideration for people. Especially I used to live in Shanghai in China, getting a train home after work and so on. Like, you're just people everywhere all over you on the train, in the queue, people are pushing. Like, it's just a complete war zone. It's crazy. But as a Swedish person, how do you feel when you go to another country where personal space is not so followed or respected? Does it make you feel uncomfortable? Do you just get on with it and get by? How do you feel? What's the worst example of that you've ever experienced in another country?
Next is a short but sweet one. Don't talk about the Finnish hockey team. Yes, the Finnish are pretty good at hockey. You don't have to rub it in. Sweden has been neutral for a long time, and we haven't been at war for ages. But the hockey matches between Finland and Sweden are as close as we get.
I need to check out some footage from one of those then.
There's one thing that makes Swedish people furious more than anything else. It's not murder. People die sometimes. It happens. It's not talking crap about Sweden. We do that ourselves anyway all the time. The worst thing you can do in Sweden is to cut in line. Standing in line is holy in Sweden. You must respect the queue and you cannot try to cut in line. Granted, this is a bit of an extreme example. This is the line to get into Comic-Con Stockholm, but the principle still stands. Do you remember the law of Jante I mentioned earlier? Basically, don't believe that you're special and that you deserve to move ahead of others in the queue. It's all about fairness. Everyone hates standing in line, but everyone has to share the pain, and no one gets special treatment. And there you have it. Cutting in line is probably the worst thing you can do in Sweden.
Yeah, tell me if you agree with that. Is that the worst thing you can do in Sweden? What's the worst thing in your opinion? Again, that's another thing that's definitely not respected here in Asia. I remember being in Hong Kong for, I was there for training. I was there for about a month or so. Anytime I went to this convenience store, I go to queue to buy something, there'll always be some old lady or old guy just cut in front of me, just put their thing down first. It's really just no holds barred. It's quite crazy. So, but it took me a while to get used to it now. I just get on with it. But tell me what you think about that list. Are those definitely things you shouldn't do in Sweden? Is there anything else that you think people should know about not to do when they come to Sweden? Thanks.